We're at the tail end of the Grilse run now, and with the summer conditions we've had coming off the back of a poor spring run, we've been desperately looking for some good news on the salmon front. And we found it. Well, sort of. Because this week, Johnny Casey and Yamil Turcuman, two passionate salmon anglers who we've spoken to before in the show, join us to let us know how their season has been, ranging from the bad to the sublime. But first, Tom, we have to talk about the fish kill on the Blackwater around Mallow. Tell us, what do we know?
Yeah, Dara. Yeah, more bad news earlier on this week. Reports of a big fish kill on the Blackwater in around the area of Mallow. Reports so far say it's over 1,000 fish killed. I've heard people say that it may very well be more by the time everything, everything is counted and what turns up. We don't know too much at the moment. So can't really say too much. I have heard, as one of the reports I read today was that some of the fish have a fungal infection.
I suppose with the heat and the warm conditions, as you said, like this, the fish are weak, aren't they? They're going to be more susceptible to whatever's in the water.
Whatever, yeah. I mean, susceptible either to fungal or maybe something getting into the water. We don't know. I mean, we don't know. You can't rule out. We don't know. I'm not saying anything because we don't know exactly what causing it yet. I mean, it's early on that it's been investigated, but yeah, when water temperatures go high, fish are definitely more susceptible to things like that, and they're weaker.
Yeah, and I know fishing clubs around the country now, especially with this kind of, okay, they're saying it's not a heat wave, but the current very warm conditions, angling clubs are being asked to be mindful, I suppose, in terms of how to manage the fishery and protect the fish stock. So it's something kind of everybody's being more wary of. And the last thing we want, obviously we had off the back of the fish kill in Loch Sheelan.
Yeah.
And I was just reading there, so I was just looking at the IFI press release. It was an 8-kilometre stretch between Mallow and Lombardstown.
Yeah, I was up to Lambertstown, yeah.
Yeah, like it's just now they're saying they're liaising with Ishgare and EPA and Cork County Council, and they're doing samples to identify the possible infection. But yeah, it's been one more.
Yeah,
fish.
another one. I mean, hot on the tail of the one in Sheelan,
Yeah,
which we still, I don't think we know too much more about it, even since then, as to what the cause was. It's just bad news. You hate to hear it. You hate to hear
yeah,
it.
and especially with two, like Sheelan and Blackwater, just two jewels in our crown, like of.
Oh yeah.
Salmon and trout.
Two big waters for anglers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose. Look, this week's episode, we wanted to get a bit of good news on the salmon front, which we kind of did. You're gonna hear from Johnny and Yamil.
You corrected me earlier on when in our pre-little talk with Yamil and Johnny, I said, guys, this is the first bit of good news we've had at salmon all year, and you corrected me really quickly. I'd forgotten about the sleighing. How could I forget?
I won't mention that now for another 10 minutes.
Well, for the listeners, you won't hear at all about it in the upcoming podcast. Not a bit.
But I tell you, it was really interesting chatting to Johnny. I think they gave us a really good snapshot of the season as it's been the Grilse run. And then, as you'll hear from Johnny, he said he had two of the most incredible weeks fishing I've ever experienced. So, like, literally gone from the lows to the highs. So, well worth the listen. There's a lot more questions in there, I think, than anything. As you'll find out, and answers on a postcard, please, if you've any theories to, as you'll hear, we discuss why some salmon rivers are doing so well compared to what seems to be the vast majority of the country. But look, there is a bit of hope there when you hear from Johnny and Yamil on it. So look, let's get back to this week's guest, Johnny and Yamil, to find out how the Grilse run and their overall salmon season has been.
For once, I'm not going to be a negative Nancy, and I can tell you, we can start on a positive, lads. Look, I don't know if it's the same in systems throughout the country, but the Grilse run that we've had down in like the southwest kind of Clare Kerry region has been really, really good. Really, really good. Really positive. Huge numbers of fish. Huge numbers of fish. It went from the worst season that I've ever had to the best season I've ever had in the space of 2 weeks.
Wow.
Bloody hell. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
when did this start?
Yeah.
How come I didn't hear more about it?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, guys, look, we did the usual, the same thing that we do every year. I did about 8 days kind of around Mayo, the usual spots, the Ridge, Owen Moore, the Erith, all of them perfect conditions, absolutely perfect conditions in all of them. And they were just devoid of fish. That was very early July. Did 3 days on the Ridge, and you have your 6 anglers each day, and there wasn't a single fish hooked in 3 days on the Ridge in pretty much perfect fly water. So we were kind of going,
Were
gee,
you
this is
seeing anything, Johnny?
nothing there, like nothing, like the pool was just devoid of fish. There was nothing there. You'd see a few on the tide, the tide is in, but that was it. So everyone at that stage, I had done 8 days in a row, and I'd been all over the place, and there was just nothing to be seen anywhere. So
8 days.
8 days, Tom. 8 days. Did 3 on the Ridge, or yeah, did the Owen Moore, 3 on the Ridge, 2 on the Erith, and did Galway Weir as well, actually, just to top it all off. And it was the same everywhere. The only fish I saw, one fish landed in Galway Weir. That was it. Really. So
and let's, like, I suppose, put this into context. Well, this was coming off a dire spring run.
Yeah.
So I suppose July, you're thinking, like, Yamil, was it the same for you? Like, up to this stage, absolute dire.
In my case, I was planning actually to go on that trip with Johnny in July, but since my wife, it's basically due in the next few days, I had to cancel that trip the very last minute. Because the spring run, I did a few trips to Ireland. Now I'm living in Spain, so it's a bit of a hassle every time I want to go fishing in Ireland. So I did a bit of fishing on the Slaney probably the previous week where you got that fish on the Slaney. We fished it with Johnny.
Oh, that's right. Do you remember about Dara's fish on the Slaney, actually?
Stop, Tom. Stop. I don't like to mention it, but go on anyway.
It did very, very well. Very, very well, given the season we have so far. But we spent basically a week on the Slaney. I spent a few days in Mayo for the spring run and didn't get much. Then I came back in May for another week, and we fished, the typical, probably the best fisheries as far as amount of fish in Ireland. And I only had one fish in Galway Weir. And believe it or not, it was the 4th fish caught since the season opened in February. And that was the 14th or 13th of May, which is quite late for the fishery. So the Grilse run, I didn't even have the chance to fish for the Grilse. I had to cancel that trip. So I'll say I should be lucky that I still had a fish in May. It was a Grilse, but it was considered probably the spring there. But yeah, it was very, very poor, the amount of fish. We didn't see fish at all on those 2 different trips. And also I've been trying to fish the local rivers here in Ireland for salmon. And just to throw a few numbers, the amount of fish caught this season has dropped around 70% from the last year and around 86% from the average of the last 16 years. So there's something going on globally, not only in Ireland, that it's basically, the main issue, the main problem, as we don't know what's happening, because that's a big decline. I'm based in the north of Spain. So north of Spain, you have mainly 5 main rivers of that they have salmon run. So the biggest run, it's on the river Narcea, and that river has only 128 fish caught this year. And if you compare that to the last few years, there has been a decline of between 60 and 70% from last year, and around 85 or 86% compared to the average of the last 17 years, which is very, very shocking number. So at the same time I was experiencing this here in Spain, it kind of like made sense what was going on in Ireland and some other countries that have salmon.
I got to come back to Spain in a second, or later on, because I think that's absolutely fascinating to find out more about that. But so just again, so you had caught 1 salmon up until summertime. Johnny, had you opened your accounts yet, or had you?
No, I drove all the way around the country for 3 months to go down to the local river after blanking for 8 days in Mayo, and I'd landed A coloured fish, but yeah, a big kind of 14, 15 pound spring fish that had obviously been sitting there for a while. But yeah, similar to what Yamil there was saying, guys, the numbers like the spring run, look, we don't have to go on about it. It was falling off a roof. So I only opened my account this year in kind of mid-July, mid-June, I think. I think it was, yeah, in and around the 12th, 13th of June, sometime around then.
So we've got the nadir, the lowest of the low point, right? And what changed? What happened? Take us through the
The weather.
the high.
The weather, probably. So there's a couple of things. Like where I'm based, like I'm based in Clare here, right? Most of the systems around here are like 99% of them are primarily spate rivers. We need big floods, like big floods. You're not kind of talking about a small, like a rise. You're talking about a flood. We started hearing reports in kind of late June from a lot of bass anglers, from various kind of estuaries around the county and around the kind of area, that there was a lot of fish just starting to appear in estuaries. I've seen it happen here in my local place in Lahinch. Last year, I remember happening. If you periods of very low water, the salmon will actually just stay. They're even on the reefs. They're on the reefs and they're on the areas around the
They're
estuary.
queuing
And you
up,
can
like, aren't
tell,
they?
yeah, they're showing up. They're showing up. You can
Yeah.
tell them straight away. They skate across the surface. It's like they throw themselves around the river. They kind of skate across the surface. So we started hearing reports of that, and we were kind of going, okay, look, fingers crossed, the next flood will be good. And so we got a flood in early June, and I was on one of the systems. And I remember the first day I went down, and I was kind of at this stage, when you've just been out so many times. Since the 1st of March, I'd been out, 15, 16, 17 times on this particular river, and just nothing. Like, it was getting nothing. I'd lost a couple of fish early season, but nothing major. But that day, I think there was one pool in particular. I hit 4 fish, lost them, but actually hooked them. But straight away, you knew they were grilse. It's a different type of a take. They kind of they cluck it and they kind of throw themselves at flies. Whereas a springer, I generally find, or a bigger fish, tends to take a fly a lot stronger. So that's when I was kind of going, okay, look, that was good to see. There's a couple of grills in. Didn't catch anything, but kind of just sometimes even just seeing fish, it just helps. Just seeing a bit of activity in the river, seeing fish helps. And so it was pretty much mid-July, all of the west coast of Ireland. Remember, we had that horrific week of weather. Like, it poured rain, like torrential rain. And we got some huge floods, like rivers going up kind of 2 meters sort of thing, down around here. And I remember kind of waiting. And one of the days, there was a couple of reports coming in from the lads spinning. They were down in very, very, very high water. But I got a phone call on a Thursday, basically saying that the lads had hit like 30, 40 fish in the space of like an afternoon. And this is in really high water. Really high water. So so that was the Thursday. So obviously, Tom, yeah, we were kind of getting excited. And
The jungle drums are in overdrive.
Yeah,
Like,
come here, I'm nearly getting excited now.
And so that was the lads spinning. And I know there was one fish, I think, got in the fly that day as well. So the Friday, it kicked off. It was a Friday. It kicked off on the Friday. We had this, basically, we'd water for 2 weeks. It kicked off on the Friday. And yeah, it was just like, lads, I can't describe to you. It was like, I'd try and put it into context, but like, it was just a bonanza. It was just ridiculous. Like, there was lads catching everyone, and most anglers I knew had 4 or 5 fish in one day each.
so it's just a case of that they were, like you said, they were shoaling up in the estuaries, just waiting for the rain. And it like you said, it needed to be a big enough of it to really just kind of bring it through. Like,
exactly. And like, I think if you look at, like, I was in the More a few times this year, guys, like, we kind of would say the same thing down here. Like, the problem is, if you get these small rises, right, or the likes of the Slaney there, like, fish can just run and run and run and run and run, like, unimpeded, which is what you want. But from an angler's perspective, on a spate river, if you get that really prolonged period of dry weather, right, then you get a massive flood. What happens is all those fish have been pooling in the estuary or in the tidal pools, right, and they all come at once. And that's what you want as an angler. Like, on the More all year, like, I know the guys have been fishing at a huge amount up there, and it's been a decent season, but The biggest issue they had was every time it went into flood, it would go into flood 2 days later, and again 2 days later, and again. So the problem is fish are unsettled. They don't like, if you have rivers going up or down, or up or down, or up or down, they don't like that. Like salmon will not take. You look at your three fish, you have your resident, your resting, and your running fish. You want to hit a resting fish. If there's constant flow up and down or constant pressure changes, you're either going to get fish just running hard as quick as they can, or else they're just going to turn sour, as we say, and just turn resident. So the best of the fishing that like we saw on the O'More and that was when the water actually dropped to what you would consider low water, because the fish finally stopped running, they rested. Whereas down below, basically, we were waiting for that prolonged period of just nothing. You wanted to go completely dry, and then if you get a big flood, it just brings all the fish at once, essentially.
So, and this is, and Yamil, how is it like? Have you been able to fish, Yamil, since?
So basically, after I had that fish in May on the last trip in Ireland, I went fishing here for trying to get a Spanish salmon. I did see quite a lot of fish, not as much fish as people were telling me that I will probably see in June here. But yeah, didn't get any fish. And the season, it's close here already.
It's closed?
The babies for salmon it's closed. For catch and kill, I think it closes on the 31st of July, and the whole season closes on Saturday, on the 15th. So, but it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do next year. If they're actually going to lower the quota, if they're going to close the rivers. I know of a few rivers in France, they closed them this year because the counters they have, they didn't even meet the minimum requirements of number of fish to have basically the rivers open. So I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm probably thinking already what's my next trip to Ireland. And on a side note to what we're talking about, I think it's very important to mention that since it's been 2 years since I moved to Spain, now I look at Ireland and the fishing in Ireland in general, and I think, and I'm pretty sure that Irish people don't know what they have in
Right.
when it comes to resources, the access to the fishing, price wise. Yeah, there's different options, different kind of fishing that you can access, but it's a very, very rich country when it comes to resources and the fishing industry. So I think you guys should be feeling lucky that you still live in Ireland and you can enjoy the fishing that you guys have. Because in other countries, like talking to people here in the rivers in Spain, they talk about what the river used to be and the amount of fish, and it's not that different from what you guys have in Ireland in some some systems. So on a side note, it's important also to keep in mind that what you guys have in Ireland, it's really, really good, and you should be you should be taken care of.
It's funny how you had to go away to
Yeah.
realize that. And that
Sometimes,
also,
yeah.
if you'd have stayed here, you'd be like us, still taking it for granted.
It's sometimes when you have things too close to you, you don't see them. So
Yeah.
that's what I keep telling Johnny and the lads in the group. Even though it might not be the best season or a great season, it's better than even Norway. We had to cancel a trip with Johnny to Norway this year, and the lads who went to the trip didn't touch a fish for 10 days or a week. So, and you're going to Norway, like you're expecting, more things, bigger fish. We find year after year that Ireland has a lot more to offer than some other, well-known destinations or fisheries.
Yeah, just quick sidetrack on Spain. So are you, first off, I didn't realize there was still even salmon that could be fished for in northern Spain where you're based. It, like gives a quick kind of overview. Is there many rivers there to fish for?
So historically, the rivers here had a very good spring run. Mainly, the Grilse run was kind of like cyclical. Like they had 2 or 3 years with a good Grilse run, and then they will disappear. Basically, that's what they say. They will even come up and then they will get after 2-3 years a few grills in. But historically, they used to get a lot of fish. Like they used to feed, um, you know, people who were working in the mines, and kind of like workers were fed by the companies with salmon, and they were complaining. Like old people especially, tell you that back then salmon was something that it wasn't valued because it was something so abundant. So that only tells you the amount of fish they were running in the river, and you can see pictures and books and everything about it. But as you know, since basically they're the rivers in the southernmost point of the habitat of the Atlantic salmon, because of global warming, because of pollution in the rivers and everything, they're probably the first ones to disappear in the rivers. And the main river that has the most amount of fish, it has a big dam on the basically on the top of the river, and they release water twice a day. So that's why it keeps getting a healthy stock of fish. And they also have a hatchery. It's actually a private hatchery, just to help with the basically with the amount of fish running in the river. But yeah, it's a very kind of like close tradition they have. People don't talk about it much. It's mostly bait fishing, like prawn fishing. They developed the nymphing thing here because of the size of the rivers, how deep they are. So it's a world very, very different to get into once you start to get to know someone, and they'll introduce you into fishing
Right.
clubs. And so it's working. I still haven't caught my Spanish salmon this year, and I don't think I'll get it because it's close already. But at least I'm enjoying kind of like the free time that I have. But if I have more time or more flexibility, I'll jump on a plane and go back to Ireland for a weekend, which I did already a few times.
Good man.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was going to ask you, have you been peppering the salmon fishing with trip stars? Obviously, at the Slaney. Have you been back? Have you done any other trips?
Yeah, yeah. Like I knew the baby was coming this year, so last year and the year before, Johnny can tell as well. Like I was trying to use all my bullets before the baby comes. You're gonna see a lot of fishing gear for sale in the next few months. But yeah, like I always try to go to Slaney for a week in the springtime in April and fish the fishery where you fish with Peter.
And what about, have you been? Are you going to get back before the season ends? Do you think, or?
My wife is due tomorrow, so I don't think
Okay,
I'll be
right.
back. I don't think I'll be back. Maybe next year.
First off, thank you very much for taking the call, Yamil. I'm surprised
Oh,
you're all
Yeah.
right.
it's a
You
pleasure.
must be on
It's a
tenterhooks,
pleasure.
like waiting for the call, like
It's a pleasure. And to be honest, it's not fishing, but it's related to fishing, so I enjoy it as well. So
Come here. I was kind of
fishing.
wondering, but when you say that, I was kind of wondering why there was not one tinge of regret in you when you said the salmon season was closing in Spain and it's going to be on the 15th. Everything is closed. Doesn't really matter.
Well, it's I don't know why they do the season here so short. Like it opens up in I think mid-March, similar to Ireland, but the salmon season closes in July, and basically since no one does catch and release, no one fishes after the 31st of July. So
But what,
I
there's
don't know.
2 weeks, there are 2 weeks catch and release until the 15th, is it?
Yeah, but if you go to the river, there's no one there. Like the culture here was always catch and kill. And thankfully, that's changing. But at the same time, the run of fish, it's declining so fast
Mm.
that, the main problem I see here and some other places, it's how do you get young people interest in the sport if
Mm.
there's nothing to catch in the river? So um, there's a lot of people talking about hatcheries, or even doing hatcheries for trout just to keep the rivers alive and the activities. But at the end of the day, it's something that it's out of an angler's hand unless they all get together and do something.
Just last question on Spain, Yamal. Like obviously we see the news about the wildfires, and obviously the heat wave hitting Europe, and the crazy temperatures in Spain, amongst other places. Are you worried then that in terms of kind of the way climate change is going, the way temperatures are going, that the rivers are just, the water is just going to get too warm?
It is actually here in the north. So the north, if you think about it, it's very similar to Ireland weather-wise. We're
Okay.
not that far. And talking to people who have been living here for the last, 40, 50 years, they tell you that never, ever they had a summer like the one that we have now, the summer that we had last year. The weather, it's definitely changing. And Spain, it's a well-known place for holidays, but nowadays the south of Spain, it's a place that it's becoming too hot to go holidays. So they say the north, it's becoming the new play, the trendy place to come just because of the weather. Because at night you can still, wear a sweater or a jacket or something, even though it's Spain. The weather, it's different. There's a big mountain line in the north, so that kind of like gives a different weather. And the rivers, yeah, the rivers here, if you look at numbers, water level wise, the rivers have been low for at least a month. So if there is any fish in the river, they're definitely struggling.
Yeah.
Weather wise, there is something going on. Again, I'm no expert at all, and I wouldn't know what's happening, but there's definitely something going on. And you just need to look at numbers and data from previous years.
Yeah. I'd love to do a follow-up sometime with you, Yamil, just to find out about the salmon culture in Spain. That's absolutely fascinating. Like, because it's not something you associate, like.
I will try to send you a few links, articles, even
Yeah.
pictures of the big fish they used to have here. Nothing to, basically not to be jealous about Norwegian salmon or maybe Irish salmon back in the day. They used to get very, very big fish, but as you know, that's gone.
Thing of the past, yeah.
Yeah.
Thing of the past.
One last thing I'd like to ask you about it, yeah, well then is you mentioned there, like it's not, by the way you're talking, it's not very easily accessible. It's sort of like you just don't show up and get a day ticket. But is it expensive then?
It's not as expensive as you will think. Like just to give you an idea, a very good beat will cost you around maybe 80, 70 euro. But the problem is not the price. The problem is the system they have. Since there is too many people basically to fish in a very short season, they have a system where you basically need to apply for basically an entry to select a day on one beat. And depending on the number on that, basically that lottery system, that number that you have, it gives you better priority or, worse priority. So it's very chancy. So let's say you're lucky to get a good number to pick a beat on an available day, on the beat that you want to go. And then that day you show up there and there's a big flood and that's it. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
Or if you can't go, you can even cancel it. So it's a system that it looks like it was made for people, like to be fair for everyone, but at the same time, just to benefit a few. So it's very, yeah, it needs to be updated, I'll say. What you guys have in Ireland, it's priceless.
Even if we're not catching. Johnny.
Look, a day on the river, it's better than being anywhere.
Nothing.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So, Johnny, the experience that you had in terms of that fishing, like it just sounds incredible. But we still have to put it in context of other fishery systems. So so was it just a case of, and I've seen it here myself, and I don't know, Tommy, do you see it increasingly that the rain is becoming increasingly localized, I find?
Absolutely.
In the sense of, it's one area will get a shed load of rain and a mile or two away and you won't see anything. So were you just lucky in that sense that the rain that you got hit your location and other places didn't get it?
Absolutely, Darrell. Like when I was chatting to lads, like there's a couple of different various lads in the clubs who were also members on the Blackwater, guys on the shore, and we would get these bans and systems. Generally, where I am in West Clare here, right? It generally, if it hits West Clare, it hits North Kerry, right? So it's just strange. That's just the way the weather patterns work. Whereas then the ones that, the rain bands that hit, we'll say the Blackwater catchment, don't. So we've had years where it's been a disaster every year. Like the Grilse run has been a disaster. It's mainly, and I'm actually kind of coming around to this idea a bit more now that maybe the fish are there. Like maybe the fish could be there. And I think a huge thing is that, like, I think if fisheries were a bit more public about the actual numbers and counter data and stuff like that, maybe on, like, you see it on, some of the Scottish rivers have it. And most of the Norwegian rivers have it. They have a weekly, right, there's this many fish have run the counter on this day. They do it on the Erev. They do it on beat 9. They can tell you on beat 9, listen, we had 20 fish that went up the counter last week. There's no point in going up to beat 7 or 8 because all the fish are still below the falls. So, and I think that we're going to be, I'm hopeful that we might be pleasantly surprised with the spring run this year, because the conditions weren't there to actually fish. But to go back to what you said, we got very, very lucky for that 2 weeks. We had one massive flood that we got about 4 or 5 days worth of fishing out of, which we haven't. That's a very rare thing to happen down here. And then there was a secondary flood on, I think. So we fished, remember, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it rained Sunday night into Monday. And then we fished Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday again. And within that 2 weeks, guys, in one particular system alone, I reckon we saw 2,500 to 3,000 fish run the river.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. Like there was one day, I had one day on I can't remember, it was a Saturday or a Sunday. I hooked 16 fish and landed 7. All on the fly.
Imagine myself when he was telling me all about it and I couldn't go. I had to block him on WhatsApp.
Like there was one stage, like I was on the phone to a friend of mine, David, and I was in this same pool. I fished it, and I'd had 4 or 5 fish, and I was on the phone to him, casting a double hander with one hand, on the phone to him, hooking and playing fish. Because at this stage, I didn't care. I was I've never, like, it's hard to explain when you're at the stage of, like, I don't care if it comes off. I've landed enough, like, what more, And I was getting them low, high, like, dry flies, like, everything.
Was it one of those was it those occasions where you're standing in the river and they're just jumping everywhere?
It was like trout fishing.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. They were everywhere. And it was one of those occasions where, like, it was almost impossible. They just took everything that came past their face. Everything. You'd see fish.
It just didn't matter.
It didn't matter, Tom. Like, you'd see fish come into the pool at the bottom, right? There's like a natural weir, right? It's like rocks. And it's streamy, broken water, right? And you'd see them hop over the weir, right? And you'd just go, right, watch this. 5 casts down, bang. You know where they're sitting. You know that they've come into that pool. They're sitting there, 5 casts down, bang. Like full float set up. Like, you could see the fly on the surface. You could see the fly. I was fishing so high that it was like there was a V coming across on the swing and on the dander, and they were just hitting it, like boiling at it, slapping it, pulling it, hooking, landing it. It's one of those you hear about these days. I might never experience anything like it again.
And what size?
They were all the same. Like, I didn't get anything big. I lost a couple of bigger fish. I did lose one big fish in the net. Both of them were that kind of 3.5 to 5 pounds range, but every single one of them seemed like bars of silver, and that was just me. There was other anglers like that day, guys. There was probably, we reckon, between, in a stretch of about 3 miles, maybe 70 to 80 fish landed, and probably hooked 200.
Wow.
So that's the sort of numbers, Tom, that we were saying. Like, if that's what you're seeing taking, right, and hooking, can you imagine what went underneath?
What's going on? Yeah.
If you have 10 fish come into a pool, one might take.
Since then, Johnny, like, how long ago was that? Sorry, a couple of weeks ago, was it?
Kind of early to mid-July, and then for about 2 or 3 weeks after that.
So since then, there hasn't been any more rain. The river's settled back, gone back to low conditions.
There hasn't, but the fish are still there. Yeah. Now the problem is, like, these systems go all over the place. Like, it's similar to Connemara. There's smaller rivers that they can go anywhere. We were fishing right down, like I was fishing right down low in the systems. So, like, you're kind of getting first go at them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I was still catching. I had fresh fish last week. I think it was last Friday, like, still catching fresh fish. Now they'll very much start to, like, I was catching coloured fish as well. They will start to turn now, but yeah, like, the one thing that I don't want to give away too much about exactly, we'll say where it is or whatever, right? The one big difference between this river and all the other rivers is catch and release. This river's a catch and release. All this area. So Clare,
Right.
and there's nets on one of the rivers down here. All the others are catch and release, right? If you look at the numbers, there was a nearly complete total collapse on this in the late naughty, like 2013, 2014. That's when it went catch and release. And since then, it's like the systems down here have come back and come back and come back and come back every year. The fear now is that when these systems come back to a certain level, they're now meeting their conservation limit.
Oh, they're going to open it up again.
And now that's the fear, is that they're going to put a blue tag again, which you don't want. So that's we were trying to figure out why is this particular area like that's it. Like as you said, why does this place have fish running in this sort of numbers? And you go down around to like, I don't know exactly, but if you go down to the Bandon down in Cork or something like, similar size river, similar spade catchment, similar profile topography. Why does this river have this run of fish? And you go not that far, like, around the southwestern side of Ireland to the Bandon or that, and they don't, I heard of good numbers, all right, in the Lee. I did hear of good numbers of fish running the Lee, but there, you must know yourself, like the shore, I don't think has been that good this year.
No,
chatting to a lot of
not here.
people, it's been very, very difficult fishing. Very
And the
difficult.
Blackwater.
At the Blackwater, exactly. Like it's been non-existent.
Yeah, exactly. Well, any thoughts? Any theories?
Well, first of all, I was very, very happy for Johnny that he that he experienced that, because you start fishing, like we normally start fishing around kind of like February, March, and you start building that anxiety, and every blank is just a bit disappointing. And it gets to a point like when you're basically at the best time of the season that you're a bit burnout. So I'm glad he had very, very good days on the river. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to share those days with him and David and the lads in the group. But at least it's nice and great to see numbers of fish running in a river. It is very strange, as Johnny was saying, and you're like, how come they're running in this river and not in a river maybe 20, 30 kilometers from that river? They're not even showing up there. So what's going on? Is it the nets at the estuary? Is it the water quality? What is it? Like, that's the main question. And it's like, it's great to see it, but at the same time, what's going on in other rivers that we're not seeing it?
Like, it would be really nice to know why. Because if there is a reason why, maybe it could be replicated to other systems.
Absolutely, Tom.
Are you saying since the catch and release was introduced that
steadily better, and has held its own? Like, this whole catchment has held its own, and we'll say, like, it holds its own every year. Definitely, it's been very good. But this year in particular, guys, just to reiterate what Yamil said there, like, I was genuinely I remember saying to someone, I got into mid-June, right? Or the start of July, when we first started kind of going, I hope the Grilse would come. And there, I said to someone, I've had 2 fish in 2 years. I'm out as much as I can. Like, if there's water in the rivers here, I'm out fly fishing for salmon.
You must have got to the stage you start to question it. How much further am I going to do?
I was on the phone to Yamil, like literally 2 of us were having this conversation of what's the point? What's the point in spending all this time, all this money, all this effort? Like, in particular, the effort, the driving, the constant blanks, the loneliness. Sometimes, like, when you're just by yourself in a river for hours on end, you start talking to yourself, questioning everything. What's the point? What am I doing? Like, it's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result.
I said to Johnny, it only takes one day, like the day you had, to get back in the game and have that confidence back and keep buying gear and flies and tie flies and all that craziness. But it's great. It's great that someone and even himself, which is a friend, is experience it. But at the same,
just to say as well, Yamil, and that it wasn't just that one day, that was the best thing, Dara, for it wasn't just for me, for everyone. This was like every day I went down for 2 weeks, we'd fish. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't in huge numbers, but we had, like, between two of us, we might have 6 or 7, and then, three. Like, you definitely saw it. It was like the run declined as the fish came through the system in the lower reaches. But like up to like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, we're still catching fresh fish.
Yamil, you must have been so tempted to just jump on a flight to Shannon and
Oh,
just.
they can tell you all about it. Like I was so mad. I was like I was happy for them, but at the same time I was like I need to be there. I just need to experience that with them because it's not the same when they tell you about it.
Yeah.
You're there. But look, next season it'll be another chance.
Would you almost get to the stage where, do you know what? I'm not even going to bother now for all these other fisheries that I know I can just concentrate on this river in my locality in the summertime, hit the grills.
Dara,
Yeah.
you've taken the words out of my mouth. One of the lads said to me, he was like, "Look at all the trips to Norway. Look at all the trips to the Ridge, to the Owen Moor, to the thing." He goes, "Where have you got your fish? Like, where have you got your fish? Like, at home, or like close to home." So yeah, no, it definitely does. It would also, this is maybe something to other anglers as well or whatever, just to help not get into that headspace where you're just complete doom and gloom and thing. Like, I definitely think that the times of the runs are changing. And I've seen that myself in the last 5, 6 years. What I mean by that is going hell for leather at salmon fishing in February, March, April. Like, if you look at what's like, if I look at my catch numbers for the last few years, like, 6, 7 years ago in April, like the latest you'd have a fish was the first week of April. Now we're seeing the big runs of spring fish. Like, there was one of my friends, Thomas, had a fish in that same week that I had the fish in June, right? He had a fish, cracking fish, sea lice bar silver, about 18 pounds. And like, that's when we were seeing the spring fish. It was mid-June. You know what I mean? Whereas they're the fish that you're expecting in late April, early May.
Yeah.
So that's one piece of advice. Maybe I definitely think next year, I'm not going to, like, as hard as it is, like, as you said, your January 1st comes and you go, right, I'm off to the Drows, as mad as it is. But maybe just for our own sanity as salmon anglers, it just kind of wait until you maybe start hearing of a few more reports. And look,
Focus.
It might be a case that you don't hear of reports and eventually you will go down. But yeah, definitely maybe staying a bit more local and just kind of taper down, do a lot more. Like, if you look at like what Tom does on the carb, like the buzzer fishing. So I've been getting into the buzzer fishing in the last few years, and that's been amazing, and there's just like carb in particular for me, it's probably the closest big lake, and we have some bog lakes down here that we do early season streamer fishing in, and we get fish up to 5-6 pounds, fishing for streamers, and maybe kind of concentrating that a bit more until that mid-May, because up until, to give you a brief thing there here. Last year in March, in one of the clubs I'm in, they had 23 fish landed. That was last year in March, right? This year, until the 28th of May, there's only 4 fish landed.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? So that's the kind of difference you're seeing. So maybe it's kind of like, look, do something else for a while. Go after early season bass. Go after the lakes, and then kind of, as remember Connor was on earlier in the year talking about that condensed, like that much more condensed season. Unfortunately, I think we are going to see that you're going to see our spring fishing will become June fishing, early June, late May. And then, we might see, remember, like last year, all the fishing that happened on the Blackwater last year, they had fresh run the fish down, they all just arrived in September. And they were fresh fish, fresh springers arriving in September, so maybe that's the case, that we're just going to see a bit more of a condensed salmon season. And maybe there's a thing you could say, the salmon themselves, you have to remember, guys, like, Jesus, the rivers weren't in a great condition in the 17th century, in the 18th century, at the start of the Industrial Revolution and all this. Salmon will come back. If they're given, like, the environment, if they're given everything, salmon can come back. So maybe a thing that we're seeing is this safety in numbers. They might just, like, that's why we're seeing maybe more, the springers are starting to maybe hold back a bit and run with grills at the same time. It might, look, it's just it's just something, like, because I was trying to go, why were the numbers that big in July? How was there nothing? And then it was an explosion of fish. You know what I mean?
Together. Well, I was going to ask you about that, and back to the condensed thing that we were talking about, Connor. So, and like when you said, "Oh, the run is getting later," like primarily what you meant there was my spring fishing is getting later.
Absolutely, Tom. Yeah,
but
that's it. That's it.
Are
the
you are you noticing? Are you noticing any change in the grilse run?
Only within maybe a week or two, Tom.
All
was
right.
only
Right.
slightly
Because
later because the rains
but,
were later, wasn't it?
Yeah,
well,
exactly. No, like realistically, no. Like the height of the Grilse run, it's always been the same. Same in, like
right.
you look at
But
Galway Weir Tom or thing, it's always mid-July or early mid-July.
well, you see, and this is what because like I can go back a couple of more years than you,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like traditionally, we used to always in the 90s expect to have grills on the DAP in Cork,
Okay, so
right?
you're talking early season.
And the grills run would start. You would have grills into the lake by the middle of May, or probably the end of May.
Yeah.
You don't, not a notion of seeing that in the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I would see it going, like I've seen it on, and for my limited salmon knowledge on the lake here, right? But I still would say that one thing I've noticed for definite, I can categorically state that the grills are way later here since the 90s, since the mid to late 90s.
See, that's the thing. I would have like my far more limited knowledge. I would still associate now. It was definitely later where I really noticed it. Maybe not as much down here. They're a bit more of a later run down here, but the likes of the Moy, like if you look at like normally the ridge food before it goes to the half days, right? That usually happens roughly the 13th, 14th of June, right?
Yeah.
Normally you're expecting the 2 weeks leading up to that, you'll catch grills. Like, predominantly you'll catch grills. Nowadays, for the last 2 or 3 years, it's your spring fishing in the first week of June.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, most last year and this year, I think most of the springers that were caught on the ridge, at least talking about the Moy, but on the ridge, they were caught in their first week in June.
Yeah.
After the big flood. Which is already summertime, like grills.
So, John, if you were to take that 2 weeks out, right?
Yeah.
And we take the rest of the country,
Uh,
we're back to, I hate to do it, but we're back to the, oh shit.
Absolutely. You look at the numbers, I think, you look at the numbers of anglers out in the Finn. You look at the numbers of anglers out, on Duff, on Moor, all the other rivers. There's so many smaller rivers, even the Connemara rivers, Tom. You know yourself, like, there's so many
I
smaller
know
rivers
full well
that we
I
don't
know,
even hear about.
I know systems here that haven't had a salmon yet.
Exactly.
Connemara.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's
And yeah, and I'm just tearing my hair, and yet you have this river, this fish, this system here that's just
That's
getting,
what I'm saying. It'd be lovely to know if we really found out the reason why.
It is
And just,
mind
put a
blowing.
little bit of it into all the rivers.
Yeah. But I always go back to like the biggest, I think, measure or the biggest thermometer you can use for Irish salmon fishing tends to be for me the Moy, because it's just the one that just consistently year after year after year has produced and produced and produced. And like I know guys like Dara, a friend of yours, Paul Kelly, who's like hammered the place, like hammered East Mayo, the Ridge, East Mayo, the Ridge thing. And they've had one or two fish.
Yeah.
Like it's you get the catch reports every week on the Moy. If you've bought a day ticket or whatever, if you're in the thing, you just get an email every week. And like I was looking at stuff there in the middle of July, and like bit of water, nothing major, but like there was water in the river, and you're seeing like 5 fish caught. In East Mayo in the middle of July, like that's
insane.
that's insane. So like, yeah, whilst like, look down here, we like it saved the season, it saved everything for me about those couple of weeks. But like overall, still, and look, this is just for me talking to friends of mine around the country. It hasn't been great. It hasn't been great.
Well, Yamil, your season's over, so that's
Yeah,
My
out of the
season's
equation.
over. Now it's parent season.
Parent season. Is this your first child? That's your
First child, yeah, baby.
well, very best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll buy all that gear off you on the cheap.
I'll try to keep it until next year, and I'll see how it goes.
So actually, and without counting your hatches and trying to get ahead of yourself, are you going to plan and try and make it back over? And also, can I ask you, obviously you're at it from a distance here, and it started off this conversation where you told us kind of how lucky we are, maybe we don't appreciate, but when you hear how Johnny's season has been, what's your thoughts looking to 2026?
So my plan next year, it's to basically at least spend a week, if I'm lucky, over there. But given the conditions that this season basically we had, and the run, as he has said, it's probably very condensed. I don't think I'm gonna bother with the spring run, just because I won't have much time to spend. So if I have a week, let's say, I'm just probably gonna go mid-May, early June, and have my chance to have a late spring fish or maybe an early grills, and that's pretty much it. If I'm lucky, I'll probably take another few days and go in like late August, early September, and do a bit of trout fishing as well, which I haven't done much in the last 4 or 5 years because of the salmon fishing. So that's my plan, and then it really depends. Since it's the first baby, I don't know how much free time I'll have next year.
None.
So that's what I'm planning. If it happens, that's great. If it doesn't happen, look, we'll see how it goes.
Good childcare. That's the secret. And Johnny, what's your hopes, plans, thoughts for the remainder of the season, and then looking ahead to next year?
Well, I'm off to Africa in the morning, so
What? Where
yeah,
is?
yeah. Up to catch 4 planes tomorrow, so that's going to be great crack. But
where are you going?
kind of all Kenya, Tanzania, yeah, all around that area, and then over to Zanzibar for a while. So I've my wife is in the next room here now, so I have to keep quiet.
Bring
but
the fly rod. Bring the fly rod.
No, don't worry, I'll have a day booked out there. I think we're going after kind of tuna and barracuda, that sort of stuff.
I fished off Zanzibar.
There you go.
Yeah, I did, with the 2 biggest chancers that you ever got in your life. Anyway, I don't have their names. If I did, all I'd say to you, don't bother with them.
Don't look
No, luckily enough, no. One of my friends, actually, a bass fisherman here from Lynch, was fished with one of the charter captains in South Africa. So he's put me in contact with him. So yeah, that's that. And then, yeah, look, we'll see what happens. I definitely look if there's water. I'm not a huge fan of fishing too late into the season. For salmon, I don't really like pulling them off reds or that kind of time of the year. But look, I will give it a go kind of early September if there's a bit of flood, and then really kind of turn to the bass. September and October is a fantastic time of the year for bass down around here, so that'll be more kind of concentrating on that. I definitely do 1 or 2 more fits down to the river.
We'll see you on the Slaney next year, Dara.
Yes, exactly. Well, I was actually going to say, Johnny, is for all the talk, right? I guarantee as season finishes, you put away the fly rods, the salmon gear, and once January comes, you're going to start itching again.
It happens every year. It's
I was going to say that early, but because we could see here, Johnny looked so much in earnest about it that I was going, no, maybe he will hold out until June next year. But no.
I'll try my best to go, even if it's for a weekend.
I want to try and hit the lakes a bit more if I can next year, because I just kept on. The lads are going to the lakes getting fish, and I was going down the river blanking here, so I was kind of going like, I've enough of this.
Well, I tell you, it's been fascinating chatting to you. Like you couldn't get both, as different sides of the equation possible. It sums it up. Lads, listen, Yamil, very best of luck.
Thank you very much, Tom and Dara.
And the salmon fishing will take a back step, but look, you'll have some crack anyway. Welcome to the roller coaster.
Salmon will be there for the next few years. That's
look, you'll have a fishing buddy in a few years anyway.
Exactly.
Yamil and Johnny, listen, thanks for being here for joining us.
Thank you very much, guys.
Our thanks to Yamil and Johnny for joining us on the show. And don't forget to rate, review and follow the Ireland on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Plus, you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com as well as on Instagram, and myself and Tom will be back with another episode about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.